She rejected the Korean billionaire's son every woman wanted. The night's soul glittered for him. The grand ballroom of the Hanoi Imperial Hotel shimmered beneath cascading crystal chandeliers, each one reflecting light like falling stars. Champagne glasses clinked softly. The city's elite gathered in silk gowns and tailored tuxedos, speaking in hushed admiration. Because tonight wasn't just a gala. It was a celebration of him, Ji-hoon Kang, the only son of Kang Group, heir to a multi-billion-dollar empire, the most eligible bachelor in South Korea. Financial magazines called him the crown prince of corporate Korea. Lifestyle blogs ranked him first in every most desired billionaire list. He was tall, devastatingly so. His black hair perfectly styled, sharp jawline sculpted like it had been designed by a master architect. His tailored midnight suit fit him like power itself had been stitched into the seams. But it wasn't just his wealth. It was his composure. Ji-hoon Kang never chased, never begged, never lost, and never, ever, got rejected. Women floated around him like moths to flame. Daughters of CEOs. Influencers with millions of followers. Socialites who had perfected the art of smiling on command. Mr. Kang, would you care to dance? My father would love to host you for dinner. I heard you're expanding into New York. I lived there for years. He responded with polite nods, controlled smiles, practiced indifference. They were all beautiful. None of them were interesting. Then he saw her. She wasn't near the center of the room. She wasn't laughing loudly or adjusting her hair when he walked by. She was standing near the balcony, alone. A simple black dress. No extravagant diamonds. No desperate glances over her shoulder. The Seoul skyline stretched behind her like a painting, neon lights reflecting in her dark eyes. In her hands was not a champagne flute, but a sketchbook. Ji-hoon's gaze sharpened. She wasn't watching him. She was studying the architecture of the ballroom ceiling, tracing the curves of the arches with careful concentration. He had attended hundreds of events in his life. No one had ever ignored him at one. Who is she? He asked quietly to his assistant. A quick glance at the guest list. Joyce Adeyemi. Architecture intern. Exchange program from New York. Invited by Professor Han from Seoul National University. An intern. Ji-hoon's lips curved slightly. Interesting. Across the room, Joyce tilted her head thoughtfully, pencil moving across paper. The chandelier light caught her skin, warm and radiant against the cool gold surroundings. There was something effortlessly graceful about her. Not curated, not rehearsed. Real. 3 women approached Ji-hoon again, laughing too loudly. He excused himself mid-sentence. Gasps followed him. Because Ji-hoon Kang did not walk away from conversations. He walked toward Joyce. She felt his presence before she looked up. The air shifted, heavier, charged. Conversations nearby slowed. She turned. Her eyes met his. No widening. No blush. No nervous smile. Just assessment. Yes, she asked calmly. Ji-hoon wasn't used to introductions where he wasn't named first. Do you know who I am? A simple question. A loaded one. Joyce studied him for half a second longer than necessary. Yes. Silence lingered between them. And, he prompted. She closed her sketchbook gently. And it doesn't change anything. His brow lifted slightly. That was new. Most people would disagree. She glanced around the ballroom, at the women watching them from a distance. I'm not most people. A dangerous thrill ran through him. You're not impressed. I'm observant, she corrected. There's a difference. The music swelled behind them as an orchestra shifted melodies. He took one step closer. And what have you observed? That everyone in this room wants something from you. Her voice remained soft. Steady. Access. Power. Status. And you don't. Joyce smiled faintly. I came to admire the architecture. For the first time in years, Ji-hoon felt something unfamiliar flicker inside him. Curiosity. You're an architecture intern? Yes. And instead of networking with potential investors, you're sketching ceilings. The ceilings will outlast the investors. That made him pause. He studied her more closely now. The intelligence behind her eyes. The calm confidence. The complete absence of calculation. She wasn't performing. She truly did not care. Ji-hoon extended his hand. Dance with me. It wasn't a request. It never had been. Joyce glanced at his hand, then back at his face. No, thank you. The words were gentle, but they hit like a public slap. The orchestra continued playing. Cameras flashed in the distance. A socialite nearby nearly dropped her drink. Ji-hoon blinked once. Excuse me? I don't dance with men I just met. You're aware that half the women in this room would fight for this invitation? I don't fight over men, she replied calmly, especially ones who are used to winning. That did it. The corner of his mouth twitched, not in anger, but disbelief. You assume I always win? She held his gaze. I assume you don't handle losing well. The silence between them thickened. No one spoke to Ji-hoon Kang like this. No one denied him. And yet, he didn't feel insulted. He felt awakened. Careful, he murmured softly. You're playing a dangerous game. Joyce tilted her head slightly. I'm not playing anything. She stepped around him. Not dramatically. Not arrogantly. Just casually. As if walking past any ordinary man. Ji-hoon turned slowly, watching her move back toward the balcony. Back to her sketchbook. Back to her skyline. The room buzzed in confusion. Did she just reject him? He noticed something else then. She never once looked back. That was the moment it happened. Not love. Not obsession. But intrigue so sharp it sliced clean through his composure. For the first time in his life, Ji-hoon Kang wanted something he could not simply acquire. Across the balcony, Joyce continued sketching, unaware that every powerful man in that ballroom now knew one thing. She had just done the impossible. She rejected the Korean billionaire's son every woman wanted. And somewhere deep inside his perfectly controlled chest, it drove him crazy. By morning, Seoul knew. Not officially. Not in headlines yet. But whispers moved faster than newspapers in elite circles. At 7:12 a.m., a blurry photo surfaced online. Ji-hoon Kang standing close to an unfamiliar woman at the Hanol Imperial Hotel balcony. At 7:46 a.m., lifestyle blogs zoomed in. At 8:03 a.m., speculation exploded. Who is she? Why was he speaking to her alone? Is this finally the woman who caught his attention? By 9 a.m., Joyce's phone wouldn't stop vibrating. She stared at the notifications in mild disbelief while sitting on the subway to campus. She hadn't given interviews, hadn't tagged anyone, hadn't even told her classmates. Yet there she was, frozen in pixelated curiosity beside a man she'd rejected. She slipped her phone back into her bag. This changes nothing, she told herself. On the other side of the city, Ji-hoon Kang sat in the top-floor executive office of Kang Group, overlooking the Han River. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Italian marble floors. Silence thick as authority. His assistant stood across from him. Sir, shall we release a statement dismissing the rumors? Ji-hoon didn't look away from the city. No. A pause. Schedule a car. 4. He finally turned. Joyce Adeyemi. His assistant hesitated just a fraction too long. Ji-hoon noticed. That will be all. At 11:20 a.m., a sleek black luxury sedan pulled up outside Seoul National University's architecture building. Students slowed, whispered, took pictures. The Kang Group insignia gleamed on the side door. Joyce was inside Studio 3B, bent over a drafting table, charcoal smudged on her fingers as she refined a housing model proposal. Her focus was sharp, almost stubbornly so. She felt the shift in the room before she heard it. A classmate rushed in. Joyce, there's a car outside. So, it's his car. Murmurs rippled. She didn't look up. I'm in the middle of something. You don't understand. It's the Kang family vehicle. Joyce finally straightened slowly. And her classmate stared at her like she'd grown a second head. You're insane. Maybe. But she walked to the window anyway. And there it was. Shining. Imposing. Obnoxiously elegant. A uniformed driver stood beside it holding an umbrella. The entire courtyard was pretending not to stare. Joyce walked outside. The air was crisp, cool against her skin. The driver bowed slightly. Miss Adeyemi, Mr. Kang has requested your presence for lunch. Requested. She glanced at the car. He could have texted. Mr. Kong does not text. That almost made her smile. Please inform Mr. Kong that I prefer public transportation. The driver blinked once. I beg your pardon? I'm not interested in private cars. Or public spectacles. Without waiting for a response, she turned and walked back into the building. The driver stood there, stunned. Inside, phones were already recording. The sedan drove away, empty. In the executive office overlooking the city, Ji-hoon read the message twice. She declined. Says she prefers the subway. He leaned back slowly in his leather chair. Then he laughed. Low. Soft. Disbelieving. She prefers the subway. No one had ever rejected access to him. Ever. He could buy companies in under 10 minutes. He could secure government contracts before lunch. He could have any woman in that ballroom on his arm with a single nod. But Joyce? She chose the subway. His ego should have been bruised. Instead, something inside him sharpened. Interesting. Clear my afternoon. Sir, you have a board meeting. Reschedule. The tone was final. At 2:47 p.m., the architecture studio doors opened again. But this time, there was no driver. No car announcement. Just silence. Then footsteps. Measured. Confident. Unhurried. Students froze as Ji-hoon Kong walked into Studio 3B. No cameras. No assistants. Just him. In a charcoal suit that probably cost more than the semester's tuition. Joyce didn't look up at first. She felt him before she saw him. The room shifted around his presence like gravity bending space. You're causing a disturbance, she said calmly, still sketching. He stopped beside her drafting table. You rejected my invitation. She continued drawing. It wasn't an invitation. It was a performance. His jaw tightened slightly. Everything in my world is visible. That doesn't mean it has to be theatrical. Now she looked up, directly into his eyes. No fear. No fluster. Just clarity. You sent a luxury car to a student campus, she continued. That wasn't lunch. That was a statement. And you refused it. Yes. Why? Her pencil paused midline. Because I'm not interested in becoming content for your reputation. The studio fell so silent. The hum of the ventilation system became audible. Ji-hoon took a step closer. You think I need you for reputation? I think you're not used to people saying no. A subtle tension flickered across his expression. You're testing me. I'm setting boundaries. He wasn't angry. He was studying her. You don't want dinner? No. Lunch? No. A tour of one of our architectural developments? She hesitated half a second. That caught his attention. I don't mix professional ambition with personal curiosity. Who said this was personal? Her eyebrow lifted. You showed up yourself. That hit. He hadn't done that in years. He lowered his voice. You're different. That's because I'm not competing. For what? For you. The audacity of her composure did something dangerous to him. It stripped away the game. For the first time, he wasn't the prize. He was the one leaning forward. Joyce, he said quietly, tasting her name carefully. Do you enjoy rejecting me? She didn't hesitate. No. But I refuse to orbit someone who expects to be the sun. Silence. Sharp. Uncomfortable. Intoxicating. He should have walked away. Should have dismissed her as arrogant. But he couldn't. Because for the first time in his perfectly controlled life, someone saw him. Not his wealth. Not his status. Him. You're assuming I need worship, he said. I'm assuming you've never had to earn affection. That one landed. Hard. A flicker of something passed through his eyes. Not anger. Exposure. He straightened slowly. You're bold. I'm honest. And what would it take? He asked quietly. For what? For you not to reject me. Her gaze softened just slightly. Stop trying to win. That was the first instruction anyone had ever given him. And he didn't know how to follow it. He stepped back. The studio seemed to breathe again. I don't lose, he said finally. Joyce met his gaze. Then maybe you've never wanted something real. He left without another word. But every step down that hallway echoed differently than it had when he entered. Outside, students exhaled. Inside the boardroom downtown, executives waited. And in the quiet space between pride and curiosity, something began to shift. Joyce watched him walk away through the window. Her heart wasn't racing. She wasn't impressed. But she was aware. That man had never been told no twice in a row. And something told her he wouldn't stop here. And somewhere across the city, in an office built on power and precision, Ji-hoon Kang realized something unsettling. He wasn't trying to possess her. He was trying to prove himself to her. And that realization? It unsettled him more than rejection ever could. Ji-hoon Kang had always believed control was strength. Control over negotiations. Control over perception. He woke at 5 a.m. every morning. Gym by 5:30. Financial briefings by 7 o'clock. Market calls by 8 o'clock. Decisions worth millions made before most people finished coffee. His life was engineered, disciplined, predictable. And then Joyce Adeyemi told him to stop trying to win. For 3 nights after the studio confrontation, he slept poorly. Not because of scandal, but because of her voice replaying in his mind. I refuse to orbit someone who expects to be the sun. He had never thought of himself as selfish. He provided jobs, built infrastructure, expanded global markets. But affection? He had never earned it. It had always arrived. Joyce hadn't arrived. She resisted, and resistance fascinated him. By the end of the week, he knew more about Joyce than he intended to. Not from gossip blogs. From quiet investigation. Not intrusive. Not illegal. Just thorough. She worked 2 part-time jobs, one at a small cafe near campus and another assisting a professor with research modeling. She sent money home every month. Her scholarship wasn't decorative, it was necessary. She ranked top 3 in her cohort. She wasn't chasing prestige. She was chasing purpose. That realization unsettled him, because purpose couldn't be purchased. Friday afternoon, an announcement was posted across the architecture department. Global Sustainable Housing Design Competition. Sponsored by Kang Group. The prize? A fully funded implementation project. International exposure. Direct collaboration with Kang Group's Urban Development Division. Whispers exploded instantly. Of course he did that because of her. This is his way of getting closer. She's lucky. She's dangerous. Joyce stared at the announcement longer than she expected. She knew exactly what people would assume. But she also knew something else. This was the kind of project she'd dreamed about since she was 16. Low-cost sustainable housing for underdeveloped communities. She signed up. Not for him. For the work. Across the city, Ji-hoon watched registration numbers climb. He hadn't created the competition for her. Not entirely. The initiative had been proposed months ago. But accelerating it now, that had been intentional. Still, he made one rule clear. No special treatment. His executive team exchanged subtle looks. For the first time, the competition would be judged anonymously. Names removed. Backgrounds hidden. Even from him. If she won, it would be hers. And if she lost, he wasn't sure how he'd feel. Weeks passed. Joyce immersed herself in design. Her proposal wasn't glamorous. It was efficient. Modular units using recycled composite materials. Passive cooling systems. She didn't design for investors. She designed for people who couldn't afford mistakes. Meanwhile, Ji-hoon found excuses to visit the university under the pretense of reviewing academic partnerships. Every time he entered Studio 3B, conversations shifted. But Joyce? She barely acknowledged him. Sometimes she nodded. He began timing his visits around when she worked. Not to interrupt. Just to observe. She furrowed her brows when concentrating. Tucked her hair behind her ear unconsciously. Bit the inside of her cheek when recalculating dimensions. He had never paid attention to such small details before. It was absurd. He negotiated with ministers without flinching. Yet the sight of her adjusting a drafting ruler pulled his focus entirely off balance. One evening, long after sunset, he entered the empty studio quietly. The lights were dim except for one desk lamp. Joyce was still there. Alone. Sketching final adjustments. "You're going to collapse at this rate," he said from behind her. She didn't jump this time. She had started sensing him. "I'm fine. You've been here since morning, and you've been monitoring me?" The accusation was calm, not angry. He didn't deny it. "I review progress." She turned slightly in her chair. Or you don't trust fairness.
His jaw tightened.
The judging panel is independent. Good. You think I'd rig it? I think you're not used to uncertainty. That word again. Uncertainty. He stepped closer to her desk, studying the model. Even without her name attached, he could tell it was hers. It carried her thinking practical, but elegant. You designed this for flood-prone regions, he observed. Yes. You calculated long-term maintenance cost? Yes. And scalability? Yes. A small silence passed. You're extraordinary, he said quietly. Her pencil stilled. No, she replied. I'm prepared. Something about that response made his chest tighten.
Prepared.
Not lucky. Not chosen. Earned. He wanted to reach out, touch her hand. But he didn't. Because for once, he wasn't trying to take. He was trying to understand. Why architecture? He asked. She hesitated. My grandmother lost her home when developers cut costs. Structural failure. No accountability. He absorbed that slowly. I decided when I was 14 that I would build things that don't collapse. The words weren't dramatic, but they were heavy. And suddenly, Ji-hoon felt something shift inside him. This wasn't attraction. This wasn't ego. This was respect. Competition day arrived. Final presentations were held in a large university hall. Professors, investors, Kong Group executives in attendance. Ji-hoon sat in the back. Anonymous judging meant he didn't know which project belonged to Joyce. He listened carefully. Presentation after presentation. Then one candidate stepped forward. Confident.
Clear. Calm. Joyce.
She presented without theatrics. Without charm tactics. She explained structural efficiency, environmental integration, community empowerment. She didn't once look at him. Not once. When applause filled the hall, Ji-hoon realized something startling. He wasn't proud because she might be his. He was proud because she was brilliant. Hours later, sealed envelopes were opened. 3rd place. 2nd place.
A pause.
1st place, Project 17. A slide appeared. Joyce's model. The hall erupted. Her classmates cheered. She inhaled sharply, not dramatically, just once. Ji-hoon clapped. Not politely, but fully, genuinely. And in that moment, something dangerous settled inside him. He didn't want to own her. He wanted to deserve standing beside her. After the ceremony, she approached him quietly. I know you accelerated this competition. He didn't lie. Yes. You didn't interfere?
No.
She studied his face carefully. For the first time, there was no edge in her expression.
Thank you, she said.
The simple gratitude affected him more than rejection ever had. You earned it, he replied. And you? What about me? Are you still trying to win? He paused. Longer this time. I don't know what this is anymore. Her gaze softened slightly. That's a start. She walked away again. But this time, he didn't feel dismissed. He felt challenged. And challenge had always fueled him. Except this wasn't about business. This was about becoming someone she might choose. That night, alone in his penthouse overlooking the city lights, Ji-hoon admitted something quietly to himself. Joyce Adeyemi was no longer a curiosity. She was no longer a conquest. She was the first person who made him question the man he had become. And the more she refused to orbit him, the more he found himself gravitating toward her. Not because he couldn't have her, but because he wasn't sure he deserved her. And that uncertainty, that vulnerability, that slow, burning ache in his chest when she walked away. It wasn't ego. It was obsession. Success should have satisfied him. The competition had been a triumph. Media outlets praised Kong Group for investing in sustainable innovation. Investors were pleased. The board applauded his visionary expansion into ethical infrastructure. But Ji-hoon knew the truth. The initiative hadn't been inspired by market projections. It had been inspired by Joyce. And now, she was officially contracted as lead junior architect on the pilot housing project, which meant he would see her often, professionally, on equal ground. The project site sat on the outskirts of Seoul, an aging residential district scheduled for redevelopment. The original plan had been sleek high-rises, luxury, profit-heavy, minimal social impact. Joyce's proposal changed that. Modular, eco-efficient housing units designed to support low-income families while maintaining structural integrity and aesthetic dignity. When Ji-hoon arrived at the site for the first joint review, executives stood waiting in stiff formation. Joyce stood separately. Hard hat on. Blueprint rolled under her arm. No makeup. No attempt to impress. Just focus. Mr. Kong, one executive began eagerly. We've adjusted the projections to maintain a 40% profit margin even with the revised materials. That's too high, Joyce interrupted calmly. Silence. Every head turned toward her. Executives did not get interrupted. Ji-hoon watched carefully. And why is that? He asked. Joyce stepped forward, unrolling the blueprint over a temporary steel table. If you push the margin that high, maintenance costs will rise long-term. Corners will get cut. Structural integrity weakens. We repeat the same cycle. One executive scoffed softly. With respect, this is a corporation, not a charity. Joyce's eyes didn't waver. And with respect, housing isn't luxury jewelry. People live in it. Children grow up in it. The air thickened. Ji-hoon could feel tension crackling between corporate greed and her uncompromising ethics. Most people in this position would soften their tone. Joyce didn't. She looked directly at him. You wanted sustainable. Or did you just want good press? Ji-hoon felt something unexpected stir inside him. Not anger.
Pride.
She wasn't intimidated. Not by the setting. Not by the suits. Not by him. He stepped closer to the blueprint. Lower the projected margin to 25%, he said calmly.
Gasps.
Sir, an executive protested. 25, he repeated. Recalculate based on long-term durability. Silence fell instantly. Executives scrambled to adjust tablets and whisper urgently. Joyce studied him carefully. Why? She asked quietly. He met her gaze. Because I don't build things that collapse. Her breath caught for half a second. He had listened. As the site meeting ended, rain began to fall lightly over the unfinished ground. Workers hurried to cover equipment. Executives rushed toward waiting vehicles. Joyce remained, staring at the skeletal structure beginning to rise from earth. You're going to get soaked, Ji-hoon said. She didn't move. This is the part that matters most, she murmured. Foundation work. He stood beside her, rain dotting his suit. You don't care about image, he observed.
No.
Even when it costs you? She glanced at him, especially then. There was something dangerously intimate about standing beside her in that rain. No cameras, no board members, no performance.
Just them.
You make everything harder, he admitted quietly. Good. He almost laughed. Why is that good? Because nothing meaningful is easy. He watched the rain slide down her hard hat, over her cheek, onto her collarbone. You challenge me constantly, he said. Then maybe you've been unchallenged too long. The honesty in her voice wasn't cruel. It was surgical. He had spent his life surrounded by agreement, by strategic politeness, by fear disguised as respect. Joyce didn't fear him, and that stripped him down to something startlingly human. The tension escalated days later during an internal review meeting. Joyce presented revised sustainability data that would require restructuring supplier contracts. A senior board member leaned back with visible irritation. Miss Adeyemi, he said coldly, you are here because of Mr. Kang's special interest in this initiative. Let's not forget hierarchy. The implication was clear. She was only there because Ji-hoon wanted her there. The room grew very still. Joyce didn't look at Ji-hoon. She addressed the board member directly. I'm here because my design won your anonymous competition. A pause. If that system wasn't trustworthy, perhaps the problem isn't me. The boldness was stunning. The board member's face hardened. Ji-hoon spoke before tension escalated further. She's correct. Every eye shifted to him. She earned her position. And if we cannot tolerate accountability from our own architects, then we are not leaders. We are cowards. The statement was icy. Final. The board member fell silent. Joyce didn't smile. She didn't thank him. She simply continued presenting. And that, more than gratitude, affected him deeply. She didn't want protection. She wanted fairness. Later that evening, Ji-hoon found her on the rooftop of the development building, reviewing structural data on her tablet. Seoul glittered beneath them. "You handled that well," he said. She didn't look up immediately. "You didn't need to defend me." "I wasn't defending you." She glanced up. "I was correcting them." A soft breeze moved between them. "You're risking investor confidence," she said. "I'm risking mediocrity if I don't." She studied him carefully. "You've changed." The words were quiet. He exhaled slowly. "You're the first person who made me question whether power, without responsibility, is just ego." Silence. The distance between them felt thinner now. Not electric. Not explosive. But charged with something deeper. Understanding. "I don't want to be your rebellion," she said softly. "You're not. Then what am I?" He stepped closer, not dominating, not commanding, just near. "You're the first person who makes me want to deserve something instead of acquire it." Her breath shifted. The city lights reflected in her eyes. "You're not used to that," she whispered.
No.
A long pause stretched between them. Vulnerable. Honest. Dangerous. "If I ever think you're choosing me because it feels rebellious," she continued, "I'll walk away." He didn't hesitate. "I would deserve that." That answer surprised even him. She searched his face. And for the first time, she saw not the billionaire heir, not the untouchable prince, but a man learning humility in real time. The rain began again lightly. Neither of them moved. "Ji-hoon," she said quietly, saying his name fully for the first time. The sound of it from her lips made his pulse shift. "You can't buy growth." "I know. You have to choose it." He nodded slowly. "I am." And this time, she didn't walk away immediately. She stood there beside him. Equal height, equal stance, challenging, unimpressed, unafraid. The woman every executive found inconvenient. The woman every socialite envied. The only woman who had ever dared question the empire of Kong Group to its core. And for the first time in his life, Ji-hoon Kong wasn't trying to win her. He was trying to become worthy of her. But neither of them realized something yet. When a powerful man begins to change, the world around him resists. And not everyone in Kong Group was pleased about who was influencing their heir. Not everyone would stay silent. And pressure was coming. Jealousy was not an emotion Ji-hoon Kong was familiar with. Possession? Yes. Competition? Always. But jealousy? Never. Until the afternoon, he saw her laughing. The International Urban Development Expo was buzzing architects, investors, global firms showcasing models and future city concepts. The pilot housing project had already gained traction, and Kong Group had secured a major presentation slot. Ji-hoon arrived late. Deliberately. He preferred entering rooms when attention was already settled. But today, the attention wasn't on him. It was on Joyce. She stood beside the Kong Group exhibition display, explaining modular sustainability models to a small crowd. Confident, animated, alive in her element. And beside her was another man.
Tall.
Charismatic, wearing a tailored navy suit and an architect's badge identifying him as Daniel Park, principal designer for a competing eco-urban firm. He leaned slightly closer than necessary when she spoke. He laughed at something she said. His hand briefly touched her lower back as he shifted position. Ji-hoon stopped walking. The sound of the expo floor dulled in his ears. That touch. It wasn't possessive, but it was familiar. Too familiar. Joyce didn't flinch. She didn't step away. She didn't look uncomfortable. She looked relaxed. Ji-hoon felt something sharp twist low in his chest. Unsettling. Jealousy. Daniel said something that made Joyce laugh, a full, unguarded laugh. Ji-hoon had heard her laugh before, but never like that. Not that freely. Something primitive flared inside him. He crossed the floor without realizing how fast he was moving. The crowd parted instinctively as he approached. Daniel noticed him first. Recognition flickered. "Mr. Kong." Daniel greeted smoothly.
Joyce turned.
Her expression didn't shift dramatically, but her eyes sharpened. "You're early," she said. "I wasn't aware I needed an invitation." The tone was smooth, controlled. Daniel extended a polite hand. "We were just discussing passive energy integration models." Ji-hoon ignored the hand for a second too long before shaking it briefly. "I'm sure you were." Joyce's gaze narrowed slightly. Daniel's firm implemented a similar flood-resistant housing grid in Jakarta last year. That must have been educational. Ji-hoon replied coolly. I'll leave you two to catch up, Daniel said, stepping away with a knowing glance. The moment he was gone, silence stretched between them. You were glaring, Joyce said quietly. I don't glare. You were. He exhaled slowly. Do you like him? The question surprised even him. It was abrupt, unfiltered. Her eyebrows lifted slightly. Is that a professional inquiry?
No.
Then what is it?
His jaw tightened.
He wasn't used to not knowing how to phrase his emotions. I didn't like how he touched you. Joyce folded her arms. He moved me aside so someone could pass. That's not what I saw. What did you see? He hesitated, vulnerability pressing against pride. I saw someone who isn't afraid to stand beside you. The words lingered, heavy. Joyce studied him carefully. You don't stand beside me? She asked softly. I'm trying to. That's different. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. I don't like the idea of someone else having access to you. There it is, she murmured. What? Possession. His expression hardened slightly. That's not what this is. Then what is it? He searched for language he had never needed before. I don't want to lose something I haven't fully gained. The honesty surprised them both. Joyce's posture softened just slightly. You can't lose something that isn't owned, she said gently. I'm not trying to own you. Then don't speak like you are. The words weren't harsh, and they forced him to confront something uncomfortable. He had spent his entire life acquiring companies, contracts. He did not know how to simply choose.
And wait.
That evening, headlines began circulating again. Is Kong Air threatened by rising architect? Photos of Ji-hoon approaching Joyce and Daniel flooded social media. Speculation ignited. Was there rivalry? Romance? Joyce stared at her phone in irritation. I hate this, she muttered. Ji-hoon stood across her office, equally tense. I'll have it removed. No. He blinked. No. If you erase every uncomfortable moment, you'll never learn from them. He stepped closer. And what am I supposed to learn? That you don't get to control perception. Silence. You think I'm threatened, he said quietly. I think you're used to being uncertain. That word again. Uncertain. He ran a hand through his hair. You looked happy, he admitted. She paused. I was discussing architecture. You were glowing. The vulnerability in his voice shifted something inside her. That doesn't belong to you, she said softly. He nodded once. I know. A long silence followed. Then he said something that changed the air between them. I don't compete for women. And yet, I wanted to pull him away from you. There it was.
Raw.
Jealousy stripped of arrogance. Joyce stepped closer now, closing the distance deliberately. Ji-hoon, do you want me because I challenge you? He met her gaze steadily.
No.
Because I refuse you?
No.
Because I make you uncomfortable? A pause.
Yes.
But not only that. Her breath slowed. Then why? He swallowed something he hadn't done in a boardroom in years. Because when you walk into a room, I don't feel powerful. She stilled. I feel human. The confession landed between them like glass. Fragile. I don't know how to be human in this space, he continued quietly. Everyone reacts to me. You don't. And that bothers you? It terrifies me. The word hung in the air. Terrifies. Ji-hoon Kong did not admit fear. Yet here he was. Open. Unshielded. Joyce felt something soften inside her chest. You're not competing with Daniel, she said gently. Then what am I doing? You're learning. He stepped closer, but not dominating. Just near. And what if someone else learns faster? He asked quietly. She studied his face carefully. You don't lose people to competition. Then how? You lose them when you try to possess them instead of understand them. He absorbed that slowly. The truth of it. Then he did something unexpected. He stepped back. I don't want to be threatened by other men, he said calmly. I want to be secure enough not to care. That wasn't ego. That was growth. Joyce nodded slightly. That's the first mature thing you've said all week. A faint smile touched his lips. And Daniel? She raised an eyebrow. Is talented. His jaw tightened slightly again. And that's all. She stepped even closer, now close enough that his breath shifted. If I choose someone, she said quietly, it will be because they stand beside me without trying to overshadow me. He held her gaze. And am I capable of that? That depends on whether you want me or whether you want to win. The silence that followed was thick, intense,
Charged.
Finally, he answered, I don't want to win. It was the first time he had said it without hesitation. And for the first time, she believed him. But neither of them knew something else. Across the city, inside the Kong estate, a woman was watching the headlines with cold calculation. Ji-hoon's mother. And she did not approve of public jealousy. She did not approve of uncertainty. And she definitely did not approve of Joyce. The real battle was about to begin. The headlines spread faster than expected. Billionaire heir distracted by foreign architect. Is Kong Group's future at risk? Inside the executive boardroom of Kong Group, the atmosphere was colder than usual. Ji-hoon's mother sat at the head of the table. Elegant. Controlled. Unimpressed. She is becoming a liability, she said calmly. Ji-hoon didn't flinch. She's an architect. She is influence, his mother corrected. And influence over you is influence over this company. Silence stretched. You're asking me to remove her from the project. I'm asking you to protect your future. He held her gaze steadily. My future is not threatened by intelligence. His mother's expression hardened. Love makes powerful men careless. Ji-hoon stood slowly. This isn't carelessness. Then what is it?
He paused.
It's choice. That evening, Joyce stood alone on the development site rooftop, reviewing revised budgets. The sky was heavy with clouds. She sensed him before he spoke. My mother met with the board. She nodded. I assumed. They want distance. And what do you want? He stepped closer, but not enough to invade her space. I want transparency. Meaning, if this becomes a war between my family and you, it won't be fair. She studied him carefully. Are you choosing them?
No.
Are you choosing me? Another pause. I'm choosing who I want to become. The honesty in his voice made her chest tighten. And who is that? Someone who doesn't step back because it's convenient. The wind moved between them. Joyce exhaled slowly. This won't be easy. I don't want easy. Silence. Then she stepped closer. Equal distance now. If you ever make me feel like I'm a risk to your image, she said softly, I will walk away. You won't have to. And for the first time, there was no jealousy in his eyes. No competition. Just certainty. He reached for her hand, slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. Their fingers intertwined. Not as conquest. Not as rebellion. But as decision. Below them, the foundation of the housing project continued to rise.
Strong.
Deliberate. Unshaken. And, for the first time, Ji-hoon Kong wasn't fighting for control. He was standing still. Choosing her. The night of the pilot project's grand opening had arrived. Seoul's skylines sparkled like scattered diamonds, reflecting off the glass facades of the new sustainable housing units. Investors, media, and city officials gathered, anticipating announcements, speeches, and applause. Ji-hoon Kong stood at the edge of the platform, calm, composed, but his eyes searched the crowd for only one person. Joyce Adeyemi, impeccably dressed yet understated, approached, holding her notes. Her presence was confident, unshaken. No cameras could capture the way her eyes lit when she saw him. He stepped forward as she began her presentation, subtly letting the applause fade before speaking into the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, his voice steady, commanding attention. This project is more than architecture. It is integrity. It is purpose. And it is led by someone who reminded me what true vision and courage look like. Joyce froze for half a second, realizing he wasn't talking about the building, but her. He lowered the microphone, letting the room settle into silence. His gaze locked on hers. Joyce Adeyemi, he said softly but clearly, you challenged me, you inspired me, and you've earned my respect, my trust, and my heart. Will you let me stand beside you? Not as a billionaire heir, but as a man who wants to be worthy of you. The crowd hushed completely. Joyce's lips curved into a small, genuine smile. No hesitation. No games. Yes, she said simply. The applause erupted, not for him, not for the empire, but for the connection between them, for a man who had learned humility and a woman who had refused to bend. They stood together on the platform, equal and unafraid, letting the night lights reflect their shared triumph, not over wealth, status, or power, but over fear, pride, and the impossible walls around their hearts. And in that moment, everything that had tested them, the family pressure, the rivalry, the media, faded. Only they remained, side by side, unshakable.